Hi everybody, Daman Mehta here, and thank you for once again joining me as I reread all the stories on my favorites list of fanfiction.net and see whether they deserve to stay on my list or not. Uh, if you watched the last video and you notice a couple changes, I'm basically moving around my house. Right now, this is my this place is connected to the Ethernet cable, so I can stream from here as well, which I'm going to be trying to do on my channel on Twitch, which is, twitch.tv/Thelmon, if you're interested. But yeah, let's go. Right now, this is about my fan fiction, so let's get into there, and let's go rate a couple more stories on this list, starting with Harry the Hufflepuff by BajaB. And this is it's a pretty short fic. Just covers the Harry's first year of Hogwarts, and the main difference here is that instead of being called a freak a lot of the time when he was a kid, lazy came up a lot more, and so he just became lazy and just decided to use all the effort he could to expend the least amount of effort as possible. And as such, Harry gets put into Hufflepuff, and it's just really, really interesting how, he just decides to work with magic and tweak it to automate the simplest of tasks, so he has to put in as little effort as possible. And the main plot just becomes background noise because it's all about just Harry's inventiveness of making time-saving little devices. It's really fun, just simple humor. There's a whole bunch of sequels that cover, I believe it goes through halfway through the fourth year. Sadly, it didn't finish the series, but honestly, it's still a lot of fun, and it's just a lot of, it's a lot of laughs to be had at the ingenuity Harry creates to get out of doing work. So this is really enjoyable, and it stays on my list. So next one is called Humor Me by StormyFireDragon. And this is, it's a super bashing story, basically, and it's like anybody who looks at Harry even a little, who looks at him wrong, gets shafted completely in every possible way, and quite publicly too. It's just too much bashing. I think that I have a tolerance to this. I can deal with if you hate a character and you want to just have unfortunate stuff happen to him. Fine, I'm usually fine with that. But this was just super ridiculous, where it's every other sentence or something was just somebody getting beat on just because the author doesn't like them, and the punishments themselves are super over the top and ridiculous, and all of the characters are just complete idiots who don't learn or even have any sense of survival instincts whatsoever. The first thing that happened in the story is Vernon is verbally abusing Harry, and then he gets magicked into a wall, and that's how it starts. And he's this is Harry's a bit older, but then the story states that this has been happening for years, that he's been constantly getting attacked by Harry's magic. So why would Vernon not have learned from this? Or even if he is so frustratingly annoyed, why would Harry still be scared? Because again, it starts with Harry cowering from Vernon, but it's if he's had years where every time he gets yelled at, his magic beats the crap out of him, why would he even be scared? He should just be oh, you're gonna yell at me? My magic, something's gonna happen to beat you up, and he shouldn't be worrying about it. And it just gets more ridiculous as the story goes on and gets to Hogwarts, because when Harry gets there, Hogwarts herself manifests as a girl just to undermine and belittle the evil duo that is Snape and Dumbledore, and just constantly attack them and do everything. And it's also a super Harry fic where Harry's magic is apparently off the charts, and all of this, he's super powered and everything's amazing. And I'm sure that sounds super interesting, but it's not. It's really, really dull and just boring and tedious. I don't recommend this, and it's gonna fall off my list. Okay. Number 3 is The Log by ThatReallyReallyWeirdDude. And this is a short, okay, I gotta stop saying short for stories that are 50,000 words. It's weird, right? Like, I'm saying it's 50,000 word stories, so it's a little short. And meanwhile, 50,000 words is like, the first Harry Potter book was, I think, 60,000 words. It's short for me because more than half the stories that I have to read for this my favorites list are over 100K or plus, more than that. So anything less than that I find to be short. But this is a fic that's basically crack, where this is a Naruto fic, where as a kid he finds a book and becomes an acolyte of the religion of the Log, and converts a few others to that religion while attacking anybody who disrespects logs in any way. It is a super Naruto fic where he's taught by the Hokage and gains a shit ton of abilities long before canon starts, but that's it's not the focus of the story. The story isn't about Naruto proving his superiority by beating everyone. The focus is on the crazy shenanigans and rituals of the Log religion and how he converts other people to it. It's a bit fun. I enjoyed the bits where Naruto's goes into a bit of how what he has to do every time he uses a log for the replacement technique. He has to depending on the technique he avoided, he has to write a page of sorries for the log and stuff like that, and things like that I thought were really fun, but it's not super it's not bust a gut laughing funny. That's the point. I enjoyed it and I had a little fun, but it's not at the level of fun or level of funny that I would keep on my list. It's a bit enjoyable, but it's not really coherent enough for stability, and so it's not. It's the problem where it's funny, but it's not super funny, and then at the same time, it's not coherent enough to be a stable, consistent story, but it also doesn't go so into randomness that it's just a stream of consciousness type thing, and it just kind of lands in the middle. So it's a good for a quick look, but it's not going to stay on my list. Okay. Sorry, my nose is really itching right now. Alright. Number 4 is A Different Sort of House Call by Hornswoggler. This is a crossover with Danny Phantom and House. Old show, House MD. So this one basically takes place where Danny, basically he has some wound and then ends up at House's hospital in ghost form, and so in ghost form all his vitals are dead, but he's still alive. So obviously he gets given to House as the mystery of the week, and it becomes a cat and mouse game where Danny's actually sick and needs treatment, but he has to hide the fact that he's a ghost. All while there's a whole bunch of emotional baggage of why he got why he got sick in the first place and stuff. And the emotional baggage is actually in a previous story, not by this author. There's it's in the description right there. This other author wrote a one shot, not a one shot, but a short story where this story would take place. This story takes place after. But you don't need to read it. I didn't read it the first time I came across the story, and it actually, I feel works interestingly as if you keep it a mystery, because the author was dealing out what happened in this story. It wasn't just demanding you read the previous one. I found the story itself to be fine as a whole. I didn't watch House a lot, so I'm a little hazy on their characters, but I feel the author at least nailed House's assholishness rather well. The problem is it feels a bit standard. The there's I really like, considering what happened and what I know of the background that they wanted to show off. I feel like it should have been hitting me a lot harder emotionally than it did. And because I like the inciting incident of what causes is honestly a really really good idea, and it's pretty dark. It'd be great to explore, but it also feels like too far away to have an impact. And the medical mystery portion is not really, doesn't really seem to give off enough tension to be truly captivating. So in the end, it's an average. It falls into like the average category, and it's also unfinished, which kind of puts a mark against it. It won't hurt you to look. I think it's worth a look, but it's not going to stay on my list. More Danny Phantom next with Subtlety by Her Misguided Ghost. And this is a much this is just like a one scene fic, short thing, more lighthearted take than the previous story, where it's just a monologue from Paulina about how Danny isn't really careful about how hiding the fact that he's Danny Phantom, but the rest of the town just knows and goes along with it because they like him as a hero. It's nice. If you like Danny Phantom, it's a nice change of pace where like even the people who were supposedly bullying him are actually on his side and like supporting him in a way that doesn't out him and stuff like that. It's a small bit of sweetness, but it's not super deep or thoughtful, so you only really need to see it once, get that little smile, and then you can go by and forget this story ever crossed your path. It's not going to stay on my list. Alright, now going back to the Harry Potter we have Harry Potter and the Temporal Beacon by Willie Leo. Oh god. And this is another Harry Potter time travel fic. This one centers around Hermione and Harry traveling back in time, and it focuses on, but instead of being like a single one and done, what this is like Hermione at the end of second year just decides like, I'm gonna work on this project, and she makes a thing that turns into like a beacon, which people can home in on. So like as soon as she creates it, she it's like a homing point for then anybody who wants to travel back to the past has a point that they can constantly come back to. So as soon as she activates it, a bunch of like lives hit her at once, and she learns to make a better version of it, and then that version, that better version works slightly differently, and so what ends up happening is we get the mass of information at once, but we only see because it didn't work out properly, they only get bits of the information and instead of full memories. And then when she makes this new version, that one allows them to live the full like lives of their journey before they go back, and that's how the author writes it, where we start going through the lives as it goes forward, and then we get to a point where eventually they come back in time and it restarts, and now they have, this is life 3 with them going forward and then coming back, and then life 4, and it goes continuous like that, where there are so multiple trips back in time to beat Voldemort. So the length is a bit odd because like the story itself is super long, and yet the chapters are not, which is a bit of an oddity, as most stories that are really that long usually have like novel length chapters themselves of like 10 to 20,000 word chapters, whereas this one's like pretty consistent, like 4 to 6k chapters, which is pretty 6k word chapters, which is pretty small on the edge. And it helps in the reading process because shorter chapters allow for easier stopping points. And it just makes it like, okay, I can just stop here, come back, do something else, and then come back and read it. And it just helps with the flow. I did find the initial gimmick interesting, as it reminded me a lot of time loop stories. Even though the the process here is a time travel story with hopefully finalizing it. It's written like a time loop story because we're going through all the past lives first as well, and it reminded me a lot of like Live Die Repeat or Edge of Tomorrow, which I really enjoyed. On the relationship side, this is a Harry and Hermione fic, and honestly, I feel like that's what should have been the pairing in canon as well. So I love Harry Hermione, and while the initial rush of how they build the relationship feels a little awkward, I think it does work because again, the reason why it's a little rush is because they first start with like multiple lives of memories of where they've been together in their head already, so it's built up. So what else? There's a couple things that are interesting in the time loops of that. Since they're looping multiple times, you can see they're a bit of a frustration of things that happen that you don't normally see in time travel fics. Mainly just because they only happen once and they usually get it right. But here it's like, because they're looping, like one of the things that happens is like they have to rebuild relationships each time they go through, and sometimes because of little things it fucks them up, such as their relationship with Hermione's parents. Like the first time they go through, they basically nail it perfectly and everything gets done, and the second time, because they were working on something else and got a little bit late, boom, now the parents basically hate Harry's guts, and the main character's like super frustrated because they were like, we had this perfect last time, what happened? I think it's really interesting. The story itself is incomplete, and considering it's been over 7 years since it's updated, I don't see it getting complete anytime soon. But there is a lot here, not just in time, but there are like multiple loops of going back to time and fixing it. So there's a lot to be interested with and to sink your teeth into. And I was never bored, even though, because of the looping nature, you're going to see a lot of events constantly over and over. I was never bored or dull with this fic. I think it's really really interesting, and it's going to stay on my list. Alright, and we got the last Harry Potter fic for this video, and the last fic for this video as well, is The Winds of Time by Ausland, Ausland. And this one is another sort of time travel story, but not quite. This one's more alternate dimensions, but similar concept, where something happens and Hermione ends up in the 70s in like another dimension with Harry's parents at their 7th year of Hogwarts. And then she waits a bit, and then Harry shows up, and then they wait a bit more, and then they travel back to their own time. So a lot of this story is basically just about Harry and Hermione fitting in the 70s Hogwarts with the parents and everybody, and dealing with Voldemort just gets shoved into a bunch of chapters near the end, and that's dealing with the Voldemort in the past, because basically Harry shows up after he's already dealt with Voldemort in his future. Nothing really great is here. Like, the story just feels small, nothing feels impactful, and it all feels like it's just drowning in mediocrity, and there's not much else to say. It's just a dull, boring story that you can skip without worry, and it's gonna fall off my list. So there we have it. A whole bunch more stories that I've read coming into December of 2010. So I think the next video that I do of this is still going to be in December, and then the one after will go into 2011. So I'm catching up slowly but surely. Thank you all so much for watching. If you want to read any of these stories, I will have links in the description, as well as a link to a forum where I also post all these reviews, the playlist, so you can watch all the videos if you want to. as well as a link to my fanfiction.net profile. So if you want to read any of the stories that are still on my list from previous videos, or if you want to see what's going to be coming up in these videos, feel free to take a look. Please leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to keep up to date. I just broke 30 subscribers, so I'm super happy about that. Like, thank you all, everybody who's watching and subscribing. It means a lot to me. And if like, I don't know, so just thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.